Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 18th meeting of the Public Art Commission for the City of Palo Alto. We are going to start our evening with roll call. Commissioner Shen, Commissioner Miyagi,
Here.
Commissioner Gordon,
Present.
Vice Chair Walczak,
Present.
and Commissioner Chair Taylor, present. Okay, next we have agenda changes, additions, or deletions.
There are none.
Okay, any public comments?
If there are any speakers online, please raise your hand virtually and you'll get 3 minutes to address the commission.
I see no remote attendees.
All right, next we're going to approve the minutes from June 16th. Any changes or any issues? I get a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
And roll call. Commissioner Shen,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Walczak,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. City official comments.
Nadia's working on some good eye candy for you. So, and there is an article that just got posted to the weekly about the Art Lift microgrant project. So there are 10 projects that will be hosting more than 35 individual events, workshops, and performances over the next 8 weeks. So it has been literally a circus, which is coming to town. So we're going to share a few images with you. This is artist Amber Smith. Her project is in Hoover Park. Through the end of August, she will be on site every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. She needs more Keurig cups. So if you have used Keurig cups, please bring them to her so she can use them, and they will all be recycled at the end. Another interesting note is she will be at the Midtown Ice Cream Social doing a special project with children to make animals out of the Keurig cups. So I'll make sure the Ice Cream Social is on your calendars. It's a great event for commissioners also to attend, but make sure you get by Hoover Park to check this out. It's going to be on view for several weeks after the August engagement's over. Mapping Palo Alto Together by artist Perry Meigs. You can see some images of her workshops that are underway now. They have all been filled up very quickly in partnership with our libraries. And basically what they're doing is looking at maps of Palo Alto and using vellum and drawing their daily patterns and how some of those may have changed during COVID or since COVID, and sharing with their new friends in the workshop sort of where there might be some overlaps. So there are a couple more workshops taking place August 19th, which is tomorrow, 4:30 to 6 in the Mitchell Park Teen Room, and Tuesday, August 23rd from 4 to 5:30 in that Midtown room. The final artwork will also be shown as a temporary mural at the Rinconada Library.
Did you say they were all filled up, all the workshops?
I have to check, are they all filled up or there might be a couple slots? Yeah, so if you go onto our website, there are links to signups there. The next one is Miguel Novello Cruz. His cinema project is called Cinetero. And so he has a couple more engagements coming up in Eleanor Party Park tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. and Johnson Park, August 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. And he's engaging with the community and talking to them about their experiences in Palo Alto, and we'll compile them to put together some cinematic project. Small Gestures will be also at the Moonlight Run. If anyone's planning to strap on their running shoes and go participate in that, it's super fun. Small Gestures is a series of workshops where the artist is giving people a chance to write a postcard with a prompt that will get delivered to a stranger who also participated in the project. And then you leave your address and someone else's card will be sent to you. So she will be this Sunday at Lytton Plaza from noon to 4 p.m. and at Mitchell Park Library Saturday, August 27th from noon to 4 p.m. So go and make sure you get a postcard, and they're all having to do with Palo Alto, and this was done in partnership with Palo Alto Camera Club. The Lost Octopotomos is a pop-up installation by artist Nico Berry. And so each of these critters is traveling separately through many of our parks, and they'll stay put for a few days. So if you follow us on Public Art PA, you can probably get some clues as to where you might look for the octopus or the hippopotamus. Each of them has a little pouch on them with coloring pages for the kids and some poetry and some fun facts. So little joy and whimsy. They had the octopus or the hippopotamus had a pretty nice stay near the JMC recently. So be on the lookout for them. Oh, and there's new artwork all around the California Avenue Public Safety Building construction site. And we're just thrilled. And the response already from the community has just been incredible. Nadia was out there overseeing the installation, and just members of the public were just thrilled and over the moon with it. So here's artist Eva Struble with abstractions of trees. The first artist was Judy Lou Luce, who did these very small pointillist portraits of Cal Ave. So you see the bottom of the fountain. I mean, it's very clearly the Cal Ave district, which is really fun. There's Eva Strudel. Deborah Aschheim came to Palo Alto and greeted members of the public and the various shop owners and people who work on the avenue, and photographed them, talked to them a bit, and then made drawings of them and incorporated them along Jacaranda. She also sent us prints of the drawings to give to each of the sitters, which was particularly lovely, and they have really enjoyed getting those. And then Let's Go for a Walk Mochi is Alice Lee, and that one is on Sherman Avenue. That's the more pedestrian, because you can't drive by that part, and it faces the family courts, and so it's a little more whimsical, a little bit more fun. We are going to do free public tours. Thank you very much. August 25th and September 8th from 4:30 to 6. So Judy Lou Luce will be there August 25th, and Alice Lee will be there September 8th. So we've done a couple of the tours of the Cal Ave district before. So similar to the previous ones, we're going to meet at the fountain. I will walk people through some different things on Cal Ave, but the real focus is on the new mural. So I hope you all will come join us for that. I think that's all we have for comments today.
Thank you, Elise. I also just want to take a minute to thank Elise and Nadia for all your hard work all the time, but for these recent projects. I know it's a lot of little time consuming, but it looks beautiful, and thank you for making our city even better. Next, oh yes.
I think the micro grants, the enlarged micro grants, I think have been a really big hit. I think that was the next logical step to make it more money. And I don't know if you want to keep it at that, if this happens again, you want to keep it at that money range or maybe expand it out even a little bit more. But right now, I think it's for the amount of money, the bang for the buck has been fantastic. So I want to congratulate both you and Nadia on that. I think it's a great program, and we just need to keep it going.
Well, we'll put that on the retreat agenda.
Good. Commissioner Shen, did you want to say something? No.
I echo the sentiments.
Great. And Commissioner Gordon, did you want to say something? Your microphone. Okay.
Do I hit?
Okay, next we're going to our special item of the day.
So in agenda setting, the chair and vice chair suggested that perhaps it might be fun, since many of us did do some traveling over the summer, for the commissioners to share out some things that they saw that were public art related that they wanted to share with their fellow commissioners. So I think Nadia is going to pull up some images, and each of you can speak to what you contributed. That would be great.
So these are my images. And I have to tell you, I don't remember the artist. But one says Church Key, I think. So I was in Scandinavia and Sweden and Denmark, and I saw these two pieces. The one on the left is from Sweden, and the one at Stockholm specifically, and the one on the right is from Denmark, Copenhagen specifically. And the one on the left was in a gigantic park. And I almost didn't see it. It was made in 2021. And for those who are online, they're lifesavers that you use when you're swimming and need some help, rescue. And it was right next to a large river. And I just thought it was just really whimsical and fun. And the fact that it was made during the pandemic was even better. And it was just nice to be in this gigantic public space and not even really see it right away. But then all of a sudden you see this glimmer of color and excitement. And I just had to check it out. And of course, I loved it. The one on the right before that, can you go back 1 second, Nadia? The one on the right was actually a cafe. And so I just liked how they used graffiti artists or street artists to enhance their menu. And next page. Okay, so these two, one is the one to the left is in Stockholm, the one to the right is in Copenhagen. So the one in Stockholm, for those of you who might be curious what it says, I don't know what it says, but I know it's something about dogs and poop. And I just loved, I don't think it was meant to be public art, but I loved the little sculpture on the top, and anything really could be public art. So it was just kind of fun to see that. And I'm a dog owner, so of course it caught my attention. And then to the right, of course, as I believe anything really can be public art. And I just like the idea of the seating that was also planter box and then had posters, which are very visual, obviously. So I just thought it was a neat way of kind of combining architectural themes, botany themes, and the visual arts all in one. And function, exactly. So that's mine. Lauren.
I was visiting England, and so the one on the left was at this garden where they are growing, I think, over 150 different varieties of apples. So I thought we were just walking in the apple orchard, and then we came upon this cement hand with those green nails cradling an apple. And I was just kind of stunned, right? So I thought that was an unusual sculpture. And then on the right, I was out late one night walking. I mean, it must have been 10 p.m. And just to see Churchill kind of walking along was really, really nice. So that was this summer.
These are mine from Jerusalem. And I just really loved how they were using the space above these walkways. So these were mainly pedestrian streets, but it was just kind of just a lovely addition both day and night to have this colorful ceiling of designs and the repetition, you know, it's birds and umbrellas, clothes, you know, there's a whole variety of things, flowers. So that's Jerusalem. And I also thought there would be opportunity like here in downtown Palo Alto or something between some of the buildings. On the right is Ciudad de Ciencias in Valencia, Spain. And that's actually an indoor space. Calatrava was the architect, but inside there were these living walls that I thought were beautiful and kind of functional and environmentally nice. This was Lisbon, and we did a walking tour of graffiti art, and they designate certain areas for the artists. So on the right, that's a designated area. I don't know if they let each artist have a spot, but the whole area is for street art. And then the one on the left, part of the building and wraps around. I didn't have a good photo of the extension, but I loved how it incorporated both. And this was also a commission piece in Lisbon that was created by blowing out with dynamite sections of this building to create the street art. So it was just a way of doing something that's more permanent and doesn't require the type of maintenance that some of the murals do. This was in London and it was on a construction wall. So just like we've done the vinyl on the walls around the safety building, this is a temporary living wall and it's dripping. I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually dripping into this gutter. And then to the left, I thought I had a photo, but I don't. It explained the whole kind of ecology of it. So I just thought that that now that we're taking advantage of some of these temporary construction walls that are unsightly until we put these beautiful things on them, there's some other ideas too around that. And this was also in London, kind of taking on what Mia was saying. It's an outdoor theater, so it's set up with these kind of colorful and different bean bags and seats. And then across the little waterway is a screen, so they screen movies there. So you can come and anybody can come and sit. There's a little schedule of movies and it's just a really nice community area, but it was just so visually pleasing.
Hey, this is mine. This is a commemoration of the Irish people in 1847 when they were going through their great famine, the potato famine. And a lot of Irish people, their mouths turned green because they were eating grass. That's the only thing they could find to eat. And the Choctaw Nation, the United States, had just finished their Trail of Tears journey from Georgia to Oklahoma. And at that time, they raised $170, which is a phenomenal sum to raise at that time. And they donated it to the Irish for famine relief. So the Irish, and this is in County Cork, the northern part of Ireland. And this is a connection between the Irish people and the Choctaw Nation, a very unlikely connection, but a connection. And this is how they honor the Choctaw Nation with the donation that they gave. And in today's money, that $170 is, I think, about $3 million. So you can just imagine how this Indian nation could come up with $170 in 1847 to donate. So this is the image on the right is, of course, during the day, and at night it's lit and it's beautifully lit. And I'm going to Ireland next year, so I'm going to go see this.
Thank you all. That was a really nice opportunity to share the public art that we think is unique, and hopefully we'll continue this process at other meetings. Next, we have the adoption of resolution authorizing the use of teleconferencing for public art commissions during COVID.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And roll call, Commissioner Shen,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Waltuck,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Next, we have Bullware Park. Elise.
Excellent. So always really exciting when we kick off a new project. So we are joined this evening remotely by landscape architect Peter Jensen, who is designing the park. And so we're going to invite him to walk you through a little bit of where they are in the process. There have been quite a few community meetings up to this point that have informed where we are with the design at this time. And we'll have time for Q&A. And then staff is requesting the allocation of funds so that we can move forward with exploring a few different options for public art at that site. So with that, I will turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Elise. Peter Jensen, landscape architect for the city of Palo Alto. Good evening, Commission. Here to discuss or just kind of go through some of the simple design, I guess, of the new Bullware Park. What we're looking at here on the sheet on the slide is a Bulwark Park, and you can see in the green the existing Bulwark Park. The city has also purchased actually the property across the street, the Birch Street property, and we are actually going to join these two properties together to make a new Bulwark Park, a bigger version, I guess, of it. If you'd like to see more information on, I guess, the process and the community outreach that has gone on for the park project, we do have a web page set up, a cityofpaloalto.org Bulwark Park. It does go through all basically the presentations that were made to the community, as well as the Parks and Recs Commission and City Council, and just goes basically through the whole process, I guess, of the design, how we got to that point. So the highlights of the design, we're looking at basically maintaining the existing facilities on site. So the existing basketball court, the open turf area, the playground area, the picnic spaces, the walkways, those are all will continue to exist in the park itself. We're also making and I guess showing some future renovation ideas for the park, and providing a 65-foot creek setback, just in case in the future that we do want to renovate the creek. That's been part of the North Ventura Coordination Plan, is the naturalization of the creek. So we do incorporate that into the overall plan. New amenities to the park will include a restroom, an actual dog park, a covered picnic area, bocce ball, rain garden, an expanded picnic area with game tables, and an expanded loop walkway around the park. Of course, we also look to make the park more accessible, and renovating all the kind of ADA issues that are out there. And there is a current pump station that's in the park that will remain overall. So in general, let's go back to this one. The park will overall design basically looks like this, and you can see that it's now all one basically continuous park space. The Ash Street portion of the park has been removed at basically this point here, which basically connects the two pieces together. And again, we have our basic playground area, that existing pump station that I was discussing before, the restroom, covered picnic area, the dog park, the basketball court, and the group picnic area with the bocce ball court. And then you can also see this line that's basically running through there is what I was referencing before, as far as the setback off the creek at 65 feet. So in the future, that if there is a renovation of the creek to make it naturalized again, that this space could basically be used to do that without impacting any of the current uses of the park overall. Currently, we are developing the construction documents for the project. We hope to have those ready fairly soon to go out to bid, and then start construction here within the next 6 months, basically, to start renovating that project itself. We hope to be done by fall of next year, renovating the overall park. So just a brief kind of review of that. I will take questions and comments if anyone has them from the commission.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to open it up to my fellow commissioners. Any questions, comments? I can just start first of all by saying thank you for this presentation, and I'm excited to have a renovated park. We know that parks are very meaningful, especially now. It's nice to be outside, and I'm looking forward to seeing it progress and having a conversation about public art. Lisa, did you want to see your?
This may or may not be relevant, so tell me if it's not. I didn't quite understand the issues around the creek. When you say in the eventuality that it will be naturalized, what does that mean?
Well, in the overall development of the North Ventura Coordination Plan, which is basically surrounding kind of the Fry's lot, which is adjacent to the park itself, there has been discussion of naturalizing a portion of the creek as part of that project. And because the park interacts or interfaces with that kind of envelope of the Fry's lot, we did leave an area open that's basically just undeveloped, that doesn't have like a basketball court or the restroom or the playground. So in the future, it is possible that if that comes to reality, that the creek is naturalized at that point, that there is significant basically room there for that to happen.
So when you say naturalize the creek, what does that phrase mean?
Well, currently the creek, Matadero Creek, has been channelized, which basically it is in a concrete channel, concrete walls and bottom. Naturalizing it would be removing an aspect or some of that or all of the concrete that's been laid there to provide a segment of the creek that has a natural bottom that's planted with native plant material, that more reflects what it was before it was channelized.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the basketball courts. Has there been any complaints about those? Because I know in other parks and areas that sometimes the basketball courts get a lot of play and there's a lot of noise that comes out of them. Has there been any complaints about that?
Not any direct complaints, but we did take that into a consideration with the design, and we did move it up into this segment here, which is adjacent to the AT&T switching building, which doesn't have a lot of people that work there, but is mostly a giant computer, and because of that, it has less impact on the neighbors in this location. So that is something that we did consider as far as this placement. Currently now the basketball court sits in the middle of basically this larger turf area, which is closer to adjacent residents. And we wanted to, I guess, relieve them from some of the noise that's happens or it's associated with the basketball court. And we did try to move that into an area that's away from residential housing.
All right, great. Thank you.
I have a question. I'd like to understand the 90,000, which bucket is it coming out of from the funds?
This is derived from the pooled CIP funds. So we did get some funds from this park project, and we get funds for all of these park projects. Public art isn't integrated into absolutely every project. And in fact, if we were to go with a strict 1%, it would be a $28,000 or $29,000 budget, which is not really significant enough to do anything meaningful. So I'm recommending that we pool some of those funds at this key South Palo Alto site to have a $90,000 budget with a contingency. And that will allow us to explore multiple options. So if we wanted to do an artist painted basketball court and maybe have something at the bathroom or do something sculptural on the fences, something like that, it gives us some leeway to go to the Community and Parks and Rec Commission and vet some of those options before we go through an artist selection.
Can you elaborate on the contingency? Because you mentioned 90,000 plus some type of contingency. I'd like to understand that a little better.
Right. So generally the contingency we cap at, what is it, 10? Yeah, is it 10%?
And when you said that we would go to the Parks and Recreation, is this a sort of a pooling of funds, or how is that collaboration?
It's really because we're doing something within a park and that is their purview. That we need to go to them to engage them in the conversation about the development of public art there and what kinds of work may or may not be appropriate and what they've heard. The same way that Parks and Rec would come to us if there was something impacting public art.
Got it. Thank you so
Right.
much.
And so the 90,000 is just for the art that would go into this park. That other budget to renovate the park is through Parks and Rec.
Yeah, it's a CIP project.
Right.
So the 90,000 is just from our art budget.
And how does the timing work if they're hoping to be done fall 2023? Does that impact our the art schedule at all, or is it irrelevant?
Well, it does, because at this point, the design is far enough along that it's not going, I would not advise that we think about putting a sculptural piece in the middle of this after all this community feedback. So most likely what we're looking at is integrating something into something that is already planned. So for instance, some of the things that Peter and I started to explore was an artist designed basketball court, and there are some incredible ones out there. There's a new ADA crosswalk, something could be engaged there, something could be in the drop-off area. So there are some ground plane things, but there's also some fences and other structures there that an artist could engage with without having to just throw out and redesign any elements of what's already here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there public art that's already there or?
No.
No, didn't think so.
Thank you, Peter Jensen, for this presentation. I am thrilled that a park is being expanded. We are really trying to make Palo Altans have a sense of belonging and having these spaces to gather, providing them a restroom, a picnic area, a place to play basketball, and to permit dogs as well is just really a wonderful thing. Our weather, as you have possibly seen during this meeting, many of the commissioners traveled this summer. And when we come back to Palo Alto, we always rejoice in the beautiful weather that this city has. And in a park like this will be so well used. And I want to tell you, we will find some wonderful art that will enhance this public space. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add one more comment, which is I love the fact that I think one of the concerns that people have raised is that we often devote resources to limited areas inside Palo Alto. And I love the fact that we are branching and channeling public arts funds to, other areas more broadly. And particularly for a public space like this, I think it would just be thoroughly enjoyed.
I agree. Thank you.
I want to echo and thank Lauren for her comments, because I think they're great. And this is a wonderful opportunity to put at least one piece of public art in that park. That's not a statue like that. So I think and basketball courts, if you ever watch basketball on TV and you see these different types of courts that they have and the way they're painted and all that, that would be wonderful. I think this is just a great opportunity for public art.
I concur, Ben. I also just wanted to encourage the city and also the Parks and Rec Commission to, as they're thinking about the renovation, to also think about other ways to integrate the arts. Obviously, we are one part of that. But I know that there was a meeting a long time ago about the master plan for Parks and Rec, and there's encouragement by many different stakeholders about how do you create, whether it's benches, a dog park, but that has some sort of artistic element as well. So I just want to put that out there to think about. Are there any other comments or any other thoughts?
I'd be happy to make the motion. Great. I move that we allocate up to $90,000 for public art in Bulware Park.
My second.
And roll call, Commissioner Shen,
Yes.
Commissioner Miyagi,
Yes, 1,000 times, yes.
Commissioner Gordon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Waltuck,
Yes.
and Chair Taylor, yes. Thank you, Peter. We look forward to hearing more from you going forward.
Great, thank you very much, Commission. Thank you.
And next we have two non-action items. First, we have our King Artist Residency.
So I don't know how many of you had a chance to see what is out on the plaza right now, but there is a little teaser piece with some of the sketches that Rios Magos has done based on his community outreach. And there are some plaques out there summarizing some of what you're going to hear tonight, but Rios is going to walk you through more of his report, which is talking through all of his various methods of community engagement and the substance of the feedback, what he was hearing back from various people, and talking about, what were the key takeaways. And that's what he has very much in mind as we're working with him on the design of a sculptural artwork that will go onto the plaza this fall. So we're kind of in the thick of the design development with that right now. But if you get a chance after the meeting, make sure you head out to King Plaza. That piece will be there until we have our sculptural work that will remain for 6 months to 1 year. So with that, I think we have Rios in the house. I can turn it over to you.
Hello. A pleasure to see you all again, commissioners. Yeah, I'm Rios Magos. Some of you have met me before. And yeah, I am super grateful to be even here at the table with you all. First and foremost, I want to thank you all as well as the public arts team, Nadia and Elise. They do a wonderful and amazing job. They've been so instrumental in just me launching this project, and each time we meet, I feel like I learn more and more on how to take the art deeper and expand it in the community. So I really want to thank you all. So I'll be sharing a presentation about sort of the overall arch of the project and kind of the information that I've gathered in the time that I've been working out of Cubberley Community Center. So if you bear with me, let me share my screen. And away we go. Okay. So again, my name is Rios Magos. I am the first King Artist Residency here with the city of Palo Alto, as you all know. So the project itself really was about focusing on civic engagements and engaging community members in conversations around identity, belonging, connection, and resilience in Palo Alto. Specifically, I was trying to amplify voices of Latinx and the BIPOC community members, as well as mental health service providers. And as some of you may or may not know, I'm actually a licensed therapist. I've been working in community mental health for the past 10 years. And so a big interest for me was really just how folks were coping and, how resilient people are, during stressful times such as the pandemic. So, of course, just like any other project, there's always obstacles and things that come up. Even in the original proposal of the project, I was proposing doing a mobile photo booth and kind of interviewing folks in that way. What we realized is that was a little sort of ambitious. So in collaboration with a few of the local mental health nonprofits, we opted to just run community workshops out of Cubberley Art Center there. And so over the span of 4 months, I put out these calls for workshops. The first set being on collaging, the second mask making, the third printmaking, the fourth watercolor. So within this type of community engagement, folks came in. These were people that I didn't know, but they were part of the community. Some identified as Latinx, some identified as a BIPOC. And it was quite a diverse crowd, very, illustrative of Palo Alto and the diversity that exists there. And so, underlying in the prompts and the engagement throughout the art workshops, I was asking folks sort of about their experience during the pandemic. This included talking about hardships. The name of the project is Rituals of Resilience. So with that being said, what were some of the things that helped people cope, that helped people sort of push through such a really difficult time, for all of us on a global, national and local scale. Also, that included how did they find connection to self and connection to their community. So in the next few slides, I'll kind of be going through some of the themes that came out of those engagements. But first, it'll be the statistics. So there was about 80 participants that attended the 20 workshops that I ran for the span of 4 months. At first, I was doing a lot of work, right? Offering these workshops like 2 or 3 times a week. And again, I think because it was still new to us and figuring out how to engage folks, there were some times where people didn't show up. So I was there by myself, but that didn't stop me. Instead, I just adjusted sort of the reach. And in the beginning, I was reaching out to, teens, but then it just made more sense to kind of focus on adults at that period of time. And if you could see the statistics there, there was, a lot more engagement with the adult population. And I think a part of that was just in, the platform. We used Eventbrite. Probably if I was using TikTok, as youth are really into that right now, I might have had more youth engagement. So the gender breakdown, and again, this is all self-identified, how folks, identified. I gave out sort of surveys, and these were sort of optional. Folks could, give me feedback. They could also fill out the demographics. So these are, estimates of the amount of people that came in based on sort of the survey data that I collected. So again, percentage that was Native or Indigenous, 2%, folks that identified as mixed, 6%, 20% that identified as AAPI or Asian, 20%, folks that identified as Caucasian, 31%, and the larger portion, which was identified as Latinx, was 39%. So in the next slide here, out of the workshops, there were themes that emerged, and I started to see this throughout, the workshops and some other sort of ways that I engaged the community outside of the workshops, which I'll go over in the next few slides. But the sort of really themes that emerged were people were talking about emotions, right? Everything, from grief to fear to sadness, to everything on the other end of the spectrum, joy for being alive, joy for having connection with family, happiness, appreciation, gratitude, these kinds of things. Another category that came up in these conversations and in these workshops, folks were talking about sort of the objects or places, whether we're talking about going to the park or being in nature or, finding, a safe space in their home where they felt comfortable. Another emerging theme was activities. And these were things that folks did sort of as rituals, like everything from walking to waking up in the morning and just making coffee very mindfully, to, having, family dinners or family Zoom chats or game nights. That was a pretty common theme. And lastly, emerging theme that came out was really people and relationships. So connections to each other, connections to their neighbors, to their family members that, lived in different parts of the city or abroad or, what have you. So in the next slide, this was another way that I engaged the community. And specifically, I'm talking about Latinx and BIPOC community members, as well as mental health service providers. So I ran interviews with folks that I met in the community, folks that I met that also worked at the local nonprofits in Palo Alto. And I had a sort of set standard of questions that I asked them. And these questions sort of revolved around their experience during the pandemic with hardships, with their practice rituals and coping skills, the connection that they developed for their own time and their self, and the connection they have with their community. And then specifically to kind of really, hear, and amplify the voice of Latinx folks, I asked them, what was it like being a Latinx service provider or an essential worker working in Palo Alto during this time? And lastly, I believe we all are kind of teachers and students in the same breath. So I really wanted to know, like, what was some advice or things that you would give the community that really helped and supported you? And, this is an example of an interviewee that I had interviewed. He was a Latinx male. He was about mid-20s, and he was an essential worker. So kind of like I had mentioned previously about the emerging themes, as I combed through all of these interviews and I was coding and going through, again, those same emerging themes came up, right? Emotions, object, places, activities, family and relationships. So I won't go too far into depth. I'll read like one or two quotes from this gentleman. But one of the things he mentioned in terms of like emotion, was the pandemic was good to me as a Latinx person. I continued to work and go to school online. I felt it was harder for me prior to the pandemic as a Latinx person. So, the way I coded this was, emotion. He talked within that quote about pride and optimism and self-esteem. Yeah. And so this is kind of how I combed through the interviews that I conducted along the, community engagement with these folks. And then the last sort of branch of the project, this was quite a beautiful project as well, is that I created 5 hand-painted boxes. And the idea was to engage a wider audience of community members that weren't able to make the workshops for whatever reason. They either didn't hear about it or because of work and traffic. Bay Area traffic is quite hectic these days. And so these boxes were distributed to the 5 Palo Alto public libraries. And each box had a question in English and in Spanish relating to themes of hope, connection, healing, growth, and resilience. And the beauty of this project was that participants contributed anonymous responses, and then the responses were coded for the same themes that I've explained previously. So, I'll give this one as an example. I won't go through all 5 because I want to respect your time this evening. So one of the boxes was, what helps you heal, right? And it was written in English and in Spanish. And, some people wrote, or a person wrote, resting, crying, and time to be alone. So again, I coded this as emotions. Object and places, music and painting are healing for me. Also nature. Activities, grounding my feet in the dirt, running my hands in the water, laughing as often as I can, deep breaths will get you there always. And lastly, people and relationships, spending time with my friends and making things. So again, to kind of get a wider community response, these boxes were out probably for a month and a half. And I think within that month and a half, they were switched out to the different libraries. So these are some of the responses, and I believe the public art team will also provide you all this information in a sort of more in-depth written document. So the final phase of the King Artist Residency is essentially the temporary artwork that is being currently designed and fabricated, and it's all sort of being influenced by the themes, the community workshops, the interviews, and the 5-box project. So essentially, all of that information is kind of informing the next and final phase of the project. So yeah, this is where I can open up to questions.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so impressed, and honored and thrilled that you're our first King artist in residency. So thank you. Nice work.
Setting the bar high here, setting the bar high.
I know, very much so. And I just also love the fact that even if you didn't get to reach as many people as you may have hoped, I think you've met people where they need to be met. And that's the most important. Sometimes it's not the amount of people, but the types of people that you connect with. So thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions?
I do. Reyes, thank you very much for the presentation. I do have a couple of questions about the attendance. You said there were, you had 80 people attending, 40, it was 20 workshops. Which one workshop had the most attendees to it? Number one.
That is a great question. So I would say some of the most popular ones were the mask making. People really got to work with their hands in a different way and with a 3-dimensional surface. There was something really enticing about it. And in some ways, there were folks that actually wanted to return, you know, and that was also the beauty, I think, of the workshops, was sort of this idea of rebuilding community because folks had been separated. So I think if I had to sort of track from the beginning of the workshops to sort of the final, you know, month of workshops, I sort of noticed that folks became over time more comfortable engaging with folks that they didn't know, right? And it really, what it was through the arts, right? The arts sort of served as sort of a, you know, an external object to sort of put folks' energy or stress or whatever has happened through them throughout, you know, the pandemic, throughout their time coming even to the workshops. And then the second one was printmaking. Folks really enjoyed printmaking. And I think the beauty of both mask making and printmaking is that, again, you don't have to be good at drawing or you know, making things necessarily. And initially, that's how folks would come in, like really hesitant to create and make art. But the way I phrased it and proposed it to them is that, you know, I want you to scrap this idea of what art is and isn't, right? I want you to scrap this idea of what being an artist is or isn't, because essentially we're all creative, right? We created this, we've created cities, we've created, right? We're able to talk through Zoom, even though I'm in a different place, right? From how we think to how we dress, to the music we listen to, we're all creative. So I think that created a safe space for folks to just explore and just be. Yeah.
And then two things really kind of jumped out at me. The attendees, it was 4-to-1 female to male.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was even worse, 97% adults, 3% children. So
Yeah.
how do you get more males and children or youth to attend? You know, and I think that you want to get that balance of, especially the youth, to get the input of the youth. Have some wonderful
Oh, yeah.
ideas, and they question everything. So you know, how do you get them to more youth to attend and more males to attend?
So I think specifically one of the sort of takeaways that I got out of running the workshops is that community is hungry for art, right? As we know, arts in schools are always being, like the art programs are always being cut, right? So I think first off, it was the platform I was using. I was using Eventbrite. Adults use Eventbrite. Kids don't use Eventbrite. So actually, when I met adults and they're like, oh my gosh, like, are you doing this for teens? I feel like if I would have known about this, You know what I mean? I would have like brought my kids or brought their friends or brought, these people. So I really think it was the approach, but because the essence of time and the timeline, was coming up, like we had to just kind of keep adapting and moving. Interestingly enough, sort of towards the end of the workshops, I got asked by the Boys and Girls Club if they could actually come and bring youth to visit me at Cubberley Studios, because they were introducing youth to sort of different career choices or options. And so the beauty in that is that organization was able to bring the youth. So I think if I had to do it over again, it would be the platform that I used, and it would probably be reaching out more directly to maybe these nonprofit youth organizations that maybe don't focus specifically on mental health, but they focus on youth. So I think that, I was trying to, get more specific, because in the beginning, it was so broad. There's so many organizations and so many beautiful things happening in Palo Alto that it kind of just, because of time, we had to narrow it down. But, great questions. And I think, yes, the youth definitely have a different perspective than all of us.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It was so comprehensive and well thought out, and I really appreciated it. I'm wondering, with all the different types of people that you engaged with, both personally at your workshops or interviewing, but also through the boxes in the libraries, do you think that this audience had a sense of something larger? Do you think that they were engaging kind of on a one-by-one experience, or do you think that they understood and felt a broader, more comprehensive overview that you really were providing and looking at this in kind of a larger way, and that the result of this almost as a research project is going to be manifest in some artwork for the city? Like, was that awareness there, do you believe?
So I think on multiple levels. I think on the one level, folks just showed up. They didn't really know what they were showing up for. Like, oh, like I'm just here to do art. Little did they know they were part of my experiment. Ha 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 ha. No, but essentially when they would show up, I was quite transparent with them. Like, hey, look, like I'm doing this artist residency. My background's actually in mental health. What we're doing here today isn't, therapy. What we're doing is actually art for the sake of, it's therapeutic. It can be healing, right? And I'll give you one example. Actually, the folks that continued to come, right? Some of them actually already did art or like doing art, but this kind of rejuvenated them in doing it. And actually a group of folks that were meeting with me are now meeting outside of, the workshops, and they're doing their own thing collectively, right? And so kind of, I guess my hope and what I was trying to get across in the workshops is like, hey, like, hopefully this shows you that, again, you can do this on your own, right? Like the materials aren't that expensive that we're using. Like, we would use everyday materials you could find at the local art store, even stuff you have at home, right? So essentially my impetus to support and to teach was to really have people develop tools for their own toolbox, right? And that's the teacher, that's a therapist in me, is that I want these people to continue to thrive and to hopefully spread some of that out into the community, which I think is happening. Yeah.
And just to follow along with that, I love this notion of an artist in residence kind of really taking a very experiential approach in the city instead of just having a space to work and creating a piece. And I think it's an interesting experiment for us as a city to do. Are you at any position? I noticed that you didn't, I know there's something in the plaza now, but you haven't revealed kind of what you're working towards. Is it something that is going to continue that spirit of collaboration, healing, communication with your ultimate, it still is going to be the ultimate tangible piece of art, but how do you see that continuing to interact with all these jumping off points that you've already started?
Yeah, so I think, yes, why I continue to make art is because it is a conversation starter, right? So with all of that community feedback, and now I'm sort of channeling that into an actual physical embodiment of that feedback, right? My hope or goal is that it continues those conversations around healing, around caring for each other, community, also about talking about mental health as being really a key component to everyday life, right? As we see, like, there's more conversations being had around the importance of mental health, similar to physical health, right? So I guess that is my hope, is that, this sculpture that we're sort of constructing or making, that it has that larger than life impact, but also creates ongoing conversations outside of the King Plaza.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for this presentation. I'm just overwhelmed by how much work you put into this. And I really appreciate my fellow commissioners' questions too. I'm learning so much. So when do we get to see the artwork on the plaza?
So we are sort of weekly, we are meeting, me and the public art team, and we're going to be meeting next week with the fabricator. We've just been really going back and forth. As like, you may have an initial idea of how you want something to look, right? And similar to you, I'm learning so much about public art, and like, you can't have things that people can trip over, or so this also has inspired me and influenced me to think differently about the art, right? And how to make it, sustainable and also safe and engaging. So we are kind of like getting to that point, and I think ideally we're shooting for, late September, October, hopefully.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. And of course, I appreciate Elise and Nadia working with you and collaborating. This is going to be great. I'm going to go take a look at some of those boards that are out front, see what I can look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I must say, I really appreciate the fact, the community building aspect of it, and the interactive part of it, art as a practice. I thought this whole process is particularly invigorating for our community. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Reyes. We look forward to seeing your final product, to use that expression, our final artwork. Thank you again for this wonderful presentation and for all your hard work.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, and next, our annual retreat discussion.
And this should be fairly brief. I just wanted to have a chance to engage with the commission as a whole to discuss the annual retreat. It is typically something that we have done in September after budget season is over, before we start getting into the holidays, to really map out, what has been on that 2-year plan? What are we still doing? Looking at the master plan, does it make sense to bring in another piece, and what does that look like? So it's always a really great day. Usually we do it as a half day, like a 9 to 1 kind of thing. We've done it on Saturdays. We've done it before on like a Friday morning. We could do it in an evening. We do know we want to talk about code art. Microgrants already came up once this evening. Murals policy and a potential murals program. And of course, the artist residency, as we look to Reyes installing his artwork and concluding, we had discussed this being an ongoing project. So we have a lot of things already on the docket that we should talk about. And so some of the dates we were looking at, if we're going for a weekend, September 17th or 24th could be potentials. But and we can send out a doodle poll as well, but I just wanted to find out, are there any no-go dates for you all? Like you're out of town for a certain period of time. Would a weekday, say a Friday morning, be a potential for any or all of you? Or are you happier with weekend? Like where should we be looking for time slots for each of you?
I was gonna say both. It depends on my schedule but I think if you could choose a few weekdays or Fridays for me and maybe a couple weekends, that would be helpful. But I can be flexible as well.
I'm also very flexible, but I may be out of town the first week of September, but
It's Labor Day week, so.
or actually right after that, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I am busy the 22nd through the 25th. I am flexible for Fridays and any weekday and also Saturday. So I have a lot of flexibility to meet.
Yeah, I would prefer probably the weekends, and then secondarily, probably Friday.
Ben? Yeah.
Just throw out some dates. I'll have to look at my calendar. Things change, especially with weddings. So with that. And one other thing about the retreat, how are we about 5 years now into the public art master plan?
We are now, I think 6, 7. We're a little past 5.
Okay. Is
Right.
this a point that we may want to take a look at overall the master plan and see what direction we want to do, or even think about in a few years doing another master plan, something like that? And I think we said it was a 10-year, at least a 10-year public art master plan, and we're getting to that point. So maybe we want to think about that and what we want to do.
Sure, and that makes sense at the time that we look at that chart and start thinking through how much of this is still relevant. Is it time to renew? All of those things are good questions.
Yeah, and what we've accomplished with that master plan.
Which
It's
is
been a
looking
lot.
pretty good.
It's been a lot, but so.
Very helpful to have master plan. These retreats are.
Microphone.
Also, with the
I'm
retreat,
just
we want to look forward to, what is it? Excuse me. We want to look forward to when we have to get the our master or not our action plan to the council, and that's in March or April that we have to do that. So do we
That's
want to
correct.
have an eye also with that we can go forward?
I think that's very wise to think through. September is usually it's a good time for us to do it, but it may be that we revisit it in the spring at the time we do the work plan for council. I haven't heard if there's any shifting on the date for that work plan, because I know it ended up being kind of an awkward time, not corresponding with a calendar year or a fiscal year. So I'll keep you posted if I hear any updates on that
Yeah, and
timeline.
I think this past one, that's what we did. We had a retreat, and then in April or so, I think we have a small subcommittee to look at that. Yeah. Okay.
And does everybody feel comfortable meeting in person?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I do.
And we can also look at rooms that we're sure invite plenty of space for social distancing and or have doors that open so we have fresh air, so we can look at some of those options. There's, the Art Center Auditorium. There are nice meeting rooms at Mitchell Park. There's the meeting room at Rinconada Library that we've utilized before. It's nice and big. You can prop a door open, all of those things. So just keep us informed if any of you are less interested in meeting in person. Of course, we will honor that. But it seems like at this point, with adequate space and circulation, people are open to it.
Okay, any last minute commissioner questions, comments, announcements?
The only thing I wanted to bring up, I mentioned earlier, is the Midtown Residents Ice Cream Social in Hoover Park is September 25th from 1 to 4. I know they have invited the Public Art Commission to host a booth. I'm not sure what we would put in said booth, but I think it would be great if you all wanted to come and engage with the Midtown residents, talk about, if they have any questions about what's happening with the poetry wall. It's a great way to highlight the micro grant piece that is there and gather some feedback from them.
Can you send that information out again, Elise?
Sure.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.